Paddlers, are you ready to take care of your injuries? I'm Shou.
I'm Bryan.
And this is Paddlers, Are You Ready? Where we talk about anything and everything Dragon Boat related. And this week we're going to talk about some common Dragon Boat injuries, what we've been dealing with, and what we've been learning from just our journey through getting it, dealing with it, and then finally one of us got professional help, and then one of us is still dealing with it. So yeah, hope you guys like our story. Yeah, Bryan. I just remember, like, a long time ago, I was talking to some coaches, and they're like, yeah, like, Dragon Boat is such an injury-prone sport. And that coach said the average kind of time span for a Dragon Boat athlete is about 5 years. He's saying, like, you know, within 5 years, most people get injured or like drop out and things like that.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that, especially when I was in high school. A lot of people were getting injured, and then just stopping because of it, or just not being able to paddle anymore. And it was almost expected that, yeah, you're going to get injured, and if you do, there's nothing you can do about it. With that said, I do get the sense that there's a general trend of people trying to take care of themselves a little more, and I'm glad that it's so. So with what that coach was saying, yeah, maybe at the time it was a little closer to that, but that shouldn't be what we're okay with. You know, we shouldn't be just complacent with that. We should expect athletes, whatever the sport is, to perform at the highest level they can for as long as they can.
Yeah, I just remember also, like, listening to some, like, powerlifting coaches say, like, basically your talent and whatnot isn't as important. Your longevity is more important, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if you train super hard and you get a little bit better at, you know, within a year or whatever, if you get injured, that might screw you up for the next 2 years. Versus if someone, you know, takes it a little slower for that first year, but then ends up getting 2 extra years on top of that injured person, they'll end up actually being better. So what kind of injuries do you see in our community a lot?
I see a lot of shoulder injuries, and I see a lot of back injuries, and I think a lot of this, I think even actually more shoulder than back, if I were to say. And I think just a lot of it is because of the lack of knowledge and a lack of know-how from the community in general. You know, you have coaches who are very knowledgeable in the sport of dragon boating and in paddling or whatnot, but they don't come from that training background where they actually had to take care of athletes. So all they're thinking about is performance without thinking about the person. And I think that's where a lot of those injuries come from. What about you? What have you seen? Yeah,
just a lot of shoulder injuries. Weirdly, though, I've been hearing a lot of people with, like, knee injuries from the outside then affecting dragon boat training. And also that when they come in with knee injuries, coaches don't really know how to deal with it. But then obviously, like, drive's really important in dragon boating, so you do really need your knee for it.
You know, now that I talk about it, I did have an athlete in Riverside who she had a knee injury, and it was really hard for her to kick off of that leg at all. But, you know, she kept pushing through it at the time, and I think I didn't do a good job of telling her not to. Now that I'm more mature as a person and as an athlete and coach, I'm able to kind of reflect back and look on too.
Yeah, I had a friend in high school that basically started off with a knee injury that, you know, she can still kind of run on it and whatnot, and then she just trained through it and she just continued to paddle, and then now, like, she's still dealing with it. Versus, I feel like, you know, if people were smarter back then, that would have been taken care of right then. Right. And then now we're seeing a lot of people come in from athletic backgrounds, or people who, you know, start dragon boating and they start lifting and they learn a lot from there and they take it back to here. Yeah, we are seeing a lot more knowledge. But yet, you know, if you're not having the right technique, dragon boating definitely could be a really injury-prone sport.
When they say dragon boating is an injury-prone sport, it's like, like what sport isn't? You know, it's like, whenever you're participating in a sport, you're always putting your body at risk of injury, right? It's just, how do you take care of it? How do you do your best to prevent it? And when you do get injured, what are you doing about it? And hopefully we get to talk about some of those things later on in this video.
Actually, do you know what sport gives most people injuries in America?
What, football?
Soccer. Most people.
People? Oh, no sport.
It's running.
Running. Okay.
Right? And that makes sense because most people run, right?
Yeah.
And I remember listening to K-Star, and he was like, "Well, running actually doesn't hurt you. You running like an asshole hurts you." So it's the same thing with dragon boating, right? Like you're trying to get at is like the technique really matters, right? Yeah. Whether you have knowledge of the human body really matters in terms of like that's why it's injury prone, or that's why people think it's injury prone, because people aren't putting physiology and sport together.
Yeah. And that's why on like professional teams, like you have your coaches, but you also have athletic trainers, and then you have doctors, surgeons, PTs, you know, the whole works. Right. Talking about knee injuries, I've had a knee injury for a while now. Even though I got it while I was playing basketball, you know, I don't think that was necessarily the cause of my injury. And hopefully we can explain a little of that too. But yeah, I have a torn lateral meniscus, so your meniscus, you know, it's like piece of cartilage inside your knee. There you go. So
if you're listening, go over to our YouTube channel and watch the video.
Yeah, so we're basically putting a leg together.
Yeah.
This is your femur, right? And this is the bottom of your leg, and then the meniscus is like that. Two kind of flabs of cartilage. So this is my right knee, and the lateral side, and the back side of it. That part's like cut this way. Yeah. Okay. So like I have like a little flap of cartilage sticking out, and what the cartilage is for is to like prevent helps absorb shock. That's a thing. Prevent bone on bone. So anytime I go below 90 degrees, or like I could go below 90, but anytime I go like further too much, then it kind of pinches it, and then I still feel it. Right. So I had to really figure out like, so what it is at the time. You know, I didn't think it was that big of an injury because I didn't even really feel it. I was like, oh, you know, it feels a little strained. I'll just rest a little. Yeah. So I rested like for a week. It didn't quite get better. But at the time I started following mobility ones, I was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like, I can take care of myself. We do the hip flexor stretch, you know, like all that stuff. But like 2 years, 3 years, it never got better until like my eyes slowly started opening up and being, you know, like this is probably a torn meniscus or something. And then like, you know, I got the MRI and it was. And that's when they, the first person, you know, actually I had a bad experience. The first person said, oh, no, it's nothing. I was like, no, dude, this is like more than something. He barely gave me like 5 minutes of my time, his time, you know? Like 5 to 10 minutes. And second person I went to was better. He said, yeah, it's a torn meniscus probably. Did the MRI. At that point, I still wasn't sure if I wanted surgery or not. And then I went to a third person like maybe 2 years ago. And he's basically pushing for the injury, although he also said it's not necessary, which, you know, made me realize, okay, like what do I want to do? Because I'm of the belief that if you can prevent injury, you should. You know, like you should do everything you can to rehab it and work around it before you actually have to cut into it, right? Unless it's like something super traumatic that needs to be fixed right away. I think you should really look into your options. Right, and that kind of points to like different types of injury. There's your overtraining, overuse injury, and then there's the like freak accident, like I fell on a skateboard and I torn my rotator cuff that way kind of injury. So it sounds like yours is more of a sort of overtraining injury. Even though I was going to say, it might seem like it was a freak accident, and in many ways it could have been, right? But it wasn't an accident that it was overtrained in that way, right? The accident, sure, I collided with someone or something, and that's what tore it. But my imbalances before that maybe made this leg a little longer, made it more susceptible to tearing, and then you know, that's how it happened through overtraining.
Right. So it's almost like the last straw that broke the camel's back. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. I've had a couple of like overtraining type injuries as well. Like I remember when I was in high school, I practiced with Lowell, then I practiced with the team that went to the World's Championship, and then I practiced with DRD. So it was like 3 practices back to back to back, and so and it was a crazy summer, and so like you said, my shoulders got injured. My shoulder was injured, and mostly my top arm. And honestly, looking back, it was just bad technique in terms of top arm drive. You know, we teach our athletes to really cue external rotation of our shoulders and just drop that shoulder and that elbow nowadays. Whereas before, you know, you don't know that because you don't lift, so you don't realize the external rotation gets your shoulder to be stable. And so I was doing a lot of, you know, like open circuit, like, you know, jamming of my top arm. So I got injured that way. But then my more recent one, I was training, I was lifting, and then I was also training with Dragon Warriors back in 2010, 2011-ish, and really just did way too many volume pieces, and I was already feeling like whenever I did my erging at the gym, one leg was favored. But then I just thought like, oh, maybe it's because, you know, I'm dragon boating on one side, so of course the other leg might be favored during my other training. But what I didn't realize was that was just a sign that I was overtraining and I had imbalances. Yeah. And then all of a sudden one day I went to lift, like, I don't know, it was just like 225 pounds on a deadlift, which is pretty light at the time. I just like heard this weird crack on my back and then just like tweaked it. And then ever since it's just been really different with my back. But then what took me a really long time to figure out is that it wasn't just my back, it was actually my hip that was overtrained, my left hip that was overtrained because I was paddling on the left side, that then drove my back to be imbalanced, right? So it's a long pathway to like figure things out. But yeah, overtraining definitely leads to injuries, and a lot of times we think of it as like that one freak accident that hurt it, but it really is the imbalances beforehand that then led to your being susceptible to injuries.
Yeah. And I feel like the stories we're sharing right now are very similar to things that a lot of you guys are probably going through yourselves, or if not you, a lot of your teammates probably have dealt with, and either have found a way to work around it, or they're still dealing with the injury today. Talking about more recent injuries, yeah, like even this season myself, like just towards the end, I think it has to do with powerlifting and dragon boating that aggravated it. But somehow, like in my lower right back, there's just like this big strain, and I think it's like on my erectors, not erection, erectors. Go look it up on Google.
Yeah.
No. Erectors.
The things that erect your back.
Yes, along the spine.
Yes. Because this is not an erect back. This is an erect back. So your erectors is what makes that happen.
Yes. Yeah. But the season was coming to an end, so I elected to push through it, and we'll talk more about that too later. But yeah, that's something I've been learning to deal with too. That I think a lot of people, you know, like you're saying, it may not be just from the back, but it can also be from the hip, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case for me.
Yeah.
So when you did get your injury, I want to know, like, how did you deal with it? How are you dealing with it now? Yeah, what things did you do?
Well, knowing me, you probably could have guessed I just pushed it, right? At least at the time, right? Yeah. Exactly. And then the reason why we're doing this podcast too is because we want to make sure we air this out so that people don't think you're the only one going through it. You know, a lot of people go through it, but they kind of hide in the dark, or they don't want to talk about it, or they feel like they're bumming you out. But like this is. Or they don't want to talk about it because it's like, oh, I don't want to spread this thing about dragon boating hurting people. But really, it's like let's talk about it so we can figure it out for the future. Yeah. And so for me, I was injured, and then I was like, okay, so what's my goal here? I want to race, but then my training is only to prepare me for my race. So why don't I just give up my training? I'm not gonna go and lift weights, but I'm still going to continue to dragon boat. So I lost a ton of weight because of that, because I was training on dragon boats, and then I was not lifting weights, and then I was also like not doing anything else because I would have to like take care of my back for dragon boat practice, and right after dragon boat practice I would feel hurt, and then so for the rest of the week I wouldn't do anything. I would just be training for dragon boating, and then after that, just I think if I had taken care of it then, I wouldn't be feeling it for so long. But since I didn't take care of it, and on top of it I trained over it, it just got worse. So how did you deal with it? And did yours connect to dragon boat at all, or was that just a separate thing?
It connected to dragon boat at times, where like because I've had this injury for a while, but same thing like you're talking about with leg drive. You know, when I first got it, it would just keep swelling up. It would lock up a lot. And I think,
by the way, a swollen knee is not something to
Yeah.
screw with. If an athlete shows up at practice with a swollen knee, send them home. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you should be doing when the knee is swollen.
yes.
So then you're saying
I
like,
shouldn't have.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so you should have known that, or your coach should have known that.
Well, yeah.
right?
So, you know, and that's a big reason why we're doing this video now, because
Mhm.
so many people don't know these things,
Yeah.
and it's time that we do face these things and give information to people and really push others to dig for themselves too. You know, find out like what are they doing wrong, so that they don't have to go through this long journey like we did and get it fixed sooner.
Yeah.
But it didn't affect my dragon boating so much as it affected my passion for weightlifting
Mhm.
and CrossFit and stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would always do like AMRAPs, like EMOMs, just everything. So those are just high intensity workouts for just in case you don't know what that is. Things that are just really worked my knee a lot. You know, running deep squats, catching cleans, that type of thing. But because of that, I just kept aggravating it, and I realized instead of pushing through it, I might be better off just switching how I train.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm actually powerlifting now. A big part of it is my knee and my shoulder. I didn't even talk about my shoulder. But, you know, I can't really snatch. I'm not sure what I did. I think that's a dragon boating too, but from the left side.
Yeah.
But yeah, powerlifting's a lot.
It demands less range of motion. Right?
Yeah, it demands less range of motion because it's still demanding on the joints,
Yeah.
but it's less explosive.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can just set my feet right,
Mm-hmm.
squat a little wider,
Yeah.
or, you know, not worry about overhead
True.
movements too much. Versus in a clean and jerk, you're going so quick that, you know, like wherever you are is kind of wherever you are. Obviously, you want to train good positions,
Right.
but I wasn't doing that at the time either.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, on the way to now, I've learned that working through it's not the best way at times, and that sometimes you have to work around it,
Right.
or find a different sport. You know.
Yeah. So I do want to kind of, because there was a contradiction there where you were saying in the beginning you chose to work through it, and that was the wrong choice. But a moment ago you just said you had a back injury this season, but yet you worked through it. And you're saying, "Oh, I've matured and I know what to do now," but yet you made the same choice back then and now. Can you talk about that? Why that is?
Yeah. That's a good question. So that goes with risk and reward, right? So with my knee, I'm thinking about longevity of my knee. So I'm thinking I want to be squatting for a long time. This is a serious enough injury. Like, it's a tear. Like, I know it's a tear. I got the MRI and everything. That if I'm not going to get surgery for it, the least I can do is try to work around it so that I'm not aggravating it too much or putting too much stress on it.
So there's a really high risk.
There was a really high risk and low reward for me. It's like, I'm not going to be some elite weightlifter, and even if I was, I mean, I wasn't passionate enough about it. I'm passionate about training in general and the barbell. But as long as I can work with the barbell in some capacity, I think I was happy with
Maybe
that.
you just clean the barbell versus cleaning the barbell.
Yeah, clean the barbell with a brush.
Yeah.
But not too deep, because then, then that doesn't solve anything.
You're like squatting, you're like on your knees trying to clean the barbell with the brush.
Yeah, and once again, if you're not watching YouTube, we're making lots of hand gestures that you can't see.
Yeah. But yeah, so you're
versus,
saying...
Versus, so going back to risk and reward,
yeah.
I'm glad you said that. So in this situation with my knee, there was a very high risk because I could get arthritis when I'm older. I could get lots of bone spurs. Like, it'll just be in lots of pain, like when I'm 50, 70 years old. Versus the reward of just being able to train at a high level for 5 years. I'd rather train for like 20, 30 more years, run around with my kids if I have and when I have kids, you know, play basketball with them, dealings like that, than to be dealing with pain for the rest of my life because I chose to train hard for 5 years. With my back injury, though, like you were saying, I know it's not a serious tear. I know it's like more of a strain. I know it's something that's being a little pulled. And for me, the reward of paddling out the rest of the season was higher than the risk at the time. So as an athlete, you really have to assess for yourself your risk and reward ratio, right? You see a lot of pro athletes, they'll push through a season, but that's because they're getting paid millions and millions of dollars to do this. Like, this is their job, this is their livelihood. You have to ask yourself,
wait, you're not getting paid millions of dollars?
I wish I was, like, if there's millions to be found, let me know.
Yeah. Let us know.
Someone sponsor us. Yeah.
We'll take that risk.
I'll take that risk. Yeah. And then I'll get the surgery.
Right.
Then, I'll be good. Yeah. But yeah, I think people overlook that. Like, they're like, yeah, but Andre Iguodala and the Warriors worked through his back sprain. It's like, yeah, but this guy is. This is like his dream. This is his life. He's getting paid to do this. Of course, he's going to go through that. Yeah. Obviously, with dragon boating, I'm not getting paid for this, but I realized that with PT school and everything, I might be a little busy and I won't get to race at the competitive level that I want to. And understanding that there's only a month left in the season, that I'm proactive enough about my injury that I know I can manage it while still taking the risk of paddling with it. Right. And that's to say, like, I wasn't doing nothing about it, right? I was still proactively attacking the injury, trying to work it around it while I was training for the rest of the season.
Yeah, you hit on a couple of points there where I feel like the only reason why you're able to make that risk reward judgment is because you were confident in your risk assessment, right? Whereas most people kind of like, oh, something's wrong with my back, it could be really risky, but it might not be. And I don't know, so therefore I'm going to err on the side of safety, which is always the smart choice, right? But you were very clear on, like, I know this is a muscular issue. This is not a structural issue.
Yep.
And so let's just kind of go through that really quick.
Yep.
I think muscular issue is probably the easiest thing to fix and probably the lowest risk. Then you have ligament issues that are then a little bit more like, it's going to take more time. It's going to take more like serious work on it. Yeah. And then from there, anything that is structure, meaning soft tissue, like not soft tissue, like any sort of cartilage or bone issue, like those are the things that like you don't want to screw with. That's really high risk. Right. So you're saying you diagnosed it as a sort of a muscular thing, and it wasn't. And even within muscular, there are strains and there's tears. So you didn't think it was a tear, even within the muscular part. And then you're saying, okay, that's a lower risk that you're willing to take because of the higher reward.
Yep. And I was fortunate enough to I didn't really get checked up by a physical therapist, but I work at a physical therapy clinic, so I was able to spend like 15 minutes with one of them one day. And like you were saying, the first thing he checked, he just wanted to make sure it wasn't structural. Had me do some bending, pressing, press ups, that type of thing, just checking my spinal integrity. He's like, no, I mean, you can like still bend and do everything fine, so that's good. It's probably just like the muscular thing without going much further. And I think it's just my experience with injuries, unfortunately, that told me like, oh, this one's okay. But with that said, now that it's the off season, I need to do a lot of proactive rest with it. And
that's kind of our point to coaches too, is like, can you tell the difference between a muscular, a tendon or a ligament issue,
and even nerve,
and then or even a
neurological,
or is it a structural thing, right? And do you understand the levels of risk that are involved in each one of them? And if you don't, like as a coach, it really is important that you get educated about that.
Yes.
And then the other point you kind of talked about is that you knew you had an injury, and you knew the risk was low and the rewards was high, and but yet you knew that you didn't want to just rest through it. Right. Like, and that was the biggest thing for me, is I'm just so sick of people saying I'm injured, so then therefore I'm just gonna rest. Right. And to me, resting is the lowest form of injury recovery thing, rehab thing that you can do, and resting really isn't enough. Right. And when you have an injury, like if you have a sore muscle, right, like rest, or even if you have a sore muscle, resting is not enough, or it's not the best thing, right? But that's still like, it passes my bar. But if you're like, I'm actually now injured, resting is not going to be enough.
Or not always. So like, Shou's not saying like obviously if you're post op, right, and you're like completely swelling, he's not telling you go run a marathon. So just to be clear. Yeah. But what he is saying, you know, like that if you're not post op or whatnot, you know, if you just got this injury and you've done your first 48 hours of resting and icing already, like what are you doing from there? Yeah. Like are you just showing up to practice with the same injury?
I'm not saying that you should not rest as in like you should go out and train.
Right.
But I'm saying that you should not just be laying on your ass.
Yeah.
Right? You should be actually stretching, you should be actively, you know, doing soft tissue work. You should be doing all sorts of things that you can easily look that up online.
Yeah.
Right. And resting is like the lowest form of recovery that you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you resting at the time? Like how did you go through this like and figure out for yourself?
So like for me, I basically kind of found a lot of resources online. So like mobilitywod.com, that's a really great resource, and you can find a lot of stretches there. So I just basically did a lot of like kind of foam rolling, lacrosse ball type stuff, also just a lot of banded stretches, so kind of trying to take care of myself that way. And I was able to, with that, got healthy enough to be able to rock climb, like you're saying, like train around it so that I'm doing other sports. I was able to rock climb, I was able to do a lot of running, things like that, because I was able to take care of it as opposed to just resting. Right? If I had that injury and I said, okay, I'm injured, I'm going to rest, I wouldn't have been able to even run or do rock climbing for a long time.
Yeah.
Right? And then even though I wasn't dragon boating at the time, I was still active, you know? So that's what we mean by like actually taking care of it versus resting.
Yeah. So yeah, you're kind of hitting around something too. Like when we've both been saying, you know, training around it. I guess it's also saying that, you know, just because you're injured in one place, doesn't mean that's the end of the road, right? Let's say you have done everything you can already. There are other sports out there. There are other avenues that you can be active. You can still be engaged with your body and your mind. You know, like the example for me was transitioning from weightlifting to powerlifting. Or I'm not playing basketball anymore, but, you know, I'm still getting my paddling in, and, you know, that type of thing. Also, I wasn't able to really deadlift or squat for the longest time, and I haven't tested in a while. But I was like, you know what, I'm going to just keep strengthening my knee, because I know my knee was also another injury point for me. So I just kept doing a lot of single leg work, a lot of balancing. I was like, this leg needs to be not stronger than the left, but, you know, I want it to be just as strong as my left.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that a lot has to do with my back injury too. And then same with my shoulder. I was like, all right, this is a perfect time to just rehab my shoulder and do some active exercises and that type of thing.
Yeah, and your body is really lazy, you know? Like, so for example, if you have a shoulder injury, you know, use that time to work your core. Use that time to work your legs. If you have a knee injury, you know, like you should be using that time to strengthen your glutes, strengthen your core, things like that. And like doing all the balance work, single leg work that you were talking about. You know, when you get to things like you have a back injury, that's a lot more difficult. But yet, look, you know, honestly, looking back, and I really take a cold hard look at myself, like, yeah, you had a back injury, but that doesn't mean that you can't do pull-ups. That doesn't mean that you couldn't be doing some bicep curls or some tricep extensions or some lateral raises. That doesn't mean that you can't do some leg extensions. You know, going to the gym to do that. You know, although I was really prideful of myself, and I was like, well, if I can't do squats, I don't want to go have a bro session and just do arm stuff. And now that, you know, looking back, that was actually the wrong choice, because that then made my body really sedentary. And then because of that, I think my body just kind of got used to that and just was like, all right, well, then I don't have to fix anything. Yeah. Whereas I honestly really feel like if you push your body, like even though you're not pushing your back, then you're pushing something else, that your body then recognizes like, oh, I still need to be active.
It makes that mind-body connection.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really important. It's like if you don't use it, you lose it.
But it's like even if you don't use your back, you should be using somewhere else.
That's what I meant. Yeah. And it's funny because like when you talk about stuff like this, I think of like a lot of patients that I work with. There are patients like, oh yeah, like I hurt my knee, so then they just become sedentary. They don't do anything. Yeah. They just become miserable. Like, man, I wish I could do this and this again. Yeah. But there are things they could do. Which also, I did want to backtrack a little bit. Do you maybe want to talk just a little bit, what's a foam roller? Like, what's a lacrosse ball? So, like, you know, obviously we've been around sports for a good part of our life,
Yeah.
and trying to actively take care of our bodies. But
Mhm.
a lot of dragon boaters, they come into it fresh, maybe not even having done a sport before,
Yeah.
and like, you know, they've never seen a foam roller before, so maybe it might be good to go through that.
Sure.
Just a little.
But disclaimer, right? Like
Yeah.
we're
You're right.
we're not professionals.
Yeah.
For you, not professional
No.
yet.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, we just like a lot of these things we just learn online. But it actually really works.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember like K-Star always talks about like you're never gonna get someone to stretch or take care of the body until they see hot, sexy performance.
Yeah.
And that's really got me into it. Was like I actually got stronger through stretching and through foam
Yep.
rolling, all that stuff.
Yep.
And that's what really stuck to me. So sort of like so you know there's a foam roller, there's the lacrosse ball, and those are more like almost like manual therapy. Like you're just going in and massaging yourself basically. And so that kind of
You
relaxes
literally
your
like
muscle.
roll on it,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah.
Yeah, and then you have sort of your compression things, so bands and things like that. You can wrap your
joints.
muscles or
Yeah.
your joints, and if you use a compression band, you wrap your muscles. That is almost like you're basically putting a foam roller around your whole muscle versus on one spot or on one side and rolling it that
Yeah.
way. You're just compressing and you're foam rolling that whole arm or leg or whatever, and you're gonna move past it. You know.
Yeah.
Or if you actually compress your joints, that's a slightly different use of the compression band, where you're then, you know, helping your body get rid of some of the fluids and helping the lymphatic system get rid of some of the waste, because our body
I think
yeah,
maybe same with the muscle too.
true, yeah, for sure,
But it's also opening up space in the joint capsule too.
yeah,
So
yeah.
people don't understand. Just like you get super compressed all day, so by putting it around the knee or elbow and by loosening it up, you're creating some space for it to move around.
Right.
I think with like those floss bands and things, those are relatively new to the field, and a lot of
Like 2 years. Like I've only
like I guess research hasn't proved one way necessarily or another, but it's just something to keep in mind. But for sure, foam rolling and the crossballs and those type of things are the least you can do.
Yeah.
Like I haven't gotten surgery for my knee, but 5 years ago when I first got the injury, and I went back to paddling. Like it would get really stiff after I started foam rolling, doing my stretches, doing the crossball. I'm paddling now. I don't feel it in my knee at all. So I mean, to me, that's proof that it worked for me.
Yeah.
Right, and it won't necessarily work for you, but it's worked for enough people that, you know, athletes use it all the time.
Yeah, let's actually get into that a little bit. Where, you know, if you're dealing with an injury, you know, like what kind of options do you have? And obviously, you know, there's the self-care. There's the hey, get online, look up how to take care of any injury, look up how to take care of whatever injury that you have. Talk to someone who, like, go to the gym. You see someone rolling on a lacrosse ball, ask them like, hey, how does that work, and things like that. Get to know that. But then also there's obviously the like surgery or like the professional help piece. So we both, I think, you know, when you're dealing with your knee and when I was dealing with my hip and my lower back, we all had to find some. We first had to diagnose, so we had to get some MRI scans, right? And in your experience, you had to see 3 guys, and the second guy was the one that got you the MRI. The first one was like, oh no, you're fine. Same thing with me. I felt like, you know, when I went to seek professional help, either it was a, hey, you like really need surgery, so let's get an MRI, let's prove that you need a surgery, and then let's go get it. Or it was a, hey, no, you're okay, like you don't really need an MRI, so like you really need to go in there knowing what you want. Yeah. Like I went in there and I was like, I know I need an MRI. So when the doctor was like, no, let's just get an X-ray and see what happens, you know, like I complied and I did that, while knowing like, okay, when we look at the X-ray, like, and it doesn't see anything, I need to know that, okay, X-ray, only bone. Okay, if I have a cartilage tear, that's only in an MRI, so I need to ask for that. Right, so I really had to push for that, for them to give me that MRI for my hip. For my lower back, what I found was I had a bulging disc, and I had so I had a bulging disc in my L4, L5. And the interesting thing is that when I went in and they saw my MRI, all of my spine doctors like looked at me and was like, "Can you walk?" And I was like, "Dude, yeah, I walked here." You know, and then they like honestly, this one doctor like didn't believe me because he was looking at the MRI and he was looking at me and he was like, "Can you go outside and just walk for me really quick?"
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Sure." And he was like, "Can you walk backwards?" And I was like, "Sure." Can you squat down and then do a duck walk for me? I was like, "Sure." And then he was looking at the MRI and he didn't understand.
Yeah.
And he was like, "The MRI shows that you should be in pain." And then what I've learned since having that MRI and having talked to people is like, dude, your MRI shows that there is an injury site, but that actually may or may not be the cause of your pain.
Yep.
Right? Your movement dysfunction causes a lot more pain than your meniscus or your any like of your structural issues. For example, like if you listen to K-Star from Mobility WOD, he says that he was working with some football players and they looked at their MRI scan for the knee and looked horrific. It was like the worst MRI that he saw. And then when he saw the athlete, he was like, "Does it hurt?" He's like, "No, it hasn't ever hurt." And really, that's like you move so well that those things get hidden, and any serious athletes are gonna have those things. Mm-hmm. And then it's your choice to like, is that the actual cause of your pain? Because oftentimes your movement dysfunction, your imbalances, your tightness actually drives a lot more pain than that. Yep. Sometimes it is that, so you do have to get surgery and just cut it out. But sometimes it's not. Yeah. So then for me, I had to like really do some research and like figure it out, and I did like a whole year of rehab before I decided, okay, yes, this structural thing is the thing that's causing me to be a little bit, wonky. So I'm gonna have to go in and cut that out. How about for yourself? Like, where are you in that journey of you got the MRI and you understand like the MRI is not the only thing that tells me what to do?
I think you made a very good point in that whenever you're seeking healthcare, you do have to be your own self-advocate. Yeah. You know your body best. I mean, so I think there's a couple levels to it. First, you have to understand pain. Mm-hmm. You have to understand there are different types of pain. Because I do have patients who come in that they just never worked out before. Yeah. It's like, oh, it hurts, but it's just their body being sore. I swear to you, like they'll like one little bicep curl or clamp or something, and just because they've never moved in that way. Yeah. And for that's a journey for them. It's like, oh no, that's just you moving a muscle that you haven't moved in a long time. Yeah. Or first is like, if there's something like really sharp and sudden, like, okay, no, you're for sure hurting it. Right. So I think just kind of understanding that pain is your body telling you something, but that there are different types of pain, first of all. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, like you were saying that you have to be your own self-advocate. So like, obviously, whatever doctor you're going to, they went to school for this for like 10 years or whatnot. So you should be listening to what they're saying, but always with a grain of salt, meaning that they definitely know what they're saying from a book standpoint, at least, and from everyone they've seen. Yeah. But you do know your body best at the end of the day. Absolutely. So if Shou didn't push for that MRI, if he didn't say, no, like, I'm pretty sure there's like a tear in here, he wouldn't have gotten it. Even the second guy, like, when I went to him, like, I knew, it was like, no, like, this is a meniscus, this is a soft tissue injury, like, I mean, like, I need to get the MRI. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think it was until then that they were willing to do it. Only because, like, I was, like, able to move, like...
Yeah, I know. That's the crazy thing. They look at you and they're like, you're fine. Yeah. And then they're like, don't get an MRI, right? So, yeah, go ahead.
Which is just another thing that kind of upsets me about the field. Like, we shouldn't be okay with that. We should always demand excellence.
Excellent, yeah.
But yeah, just always seeking different options, being open about it, and being your own self-advocate. Mm-hmm. And that goes in life. Yeah.
So then for you, like, you got the MRI and you understand how it relates to your pain, and then where do you stand right now?
So right now, every now and then I still do teeter back and forth, but I've done so well at managing it that I'm like, maybe I don't need it. And, kind of going back to that football player example, or going back to you, we're like, what? Like, he could walk, but how come there's no pain? Yeah. A lot of it is structural tightness around the injury that causes more of it. So just by foam rolling, like, the IT band around there, just doing lots more stretching and that type of thing, I reduce my pain, like, so much. So before, let's say, it would be at a 7 at most, 7 to 8 at most. Now it's like 3 to 4 at most, you know? The one thing that I do think of is if I ever do want to run around with my kids a lot, because over time, like if I do use it a lot, it does swell a little. Like I don't see it swelling, but I feel it. So like if I am going to be running around a lot, if I am going to be a parent, that's one thing I'm thinking of. You know, I can't just think of myself as an athlete. I have to look at my body as like this is the only body I have, and if I want to take care of my children or my family or whoever in the future, I will have to think seriously about that.
Yeah.
So for the time being, I'm actually, I'd say like 90% fine. You know, but there is a part of me that still questions every now and then. You know, whether I should do it. If I knew what I knew then, if I knew what I know now back then, I would have rehabbed it faster or gotten it right away. Gotten the surgery right away. Yeah. Because I know that would have helped me. But now that the damage has been done and I know it's not really going to be damaged any further, that's why I have that questions of should I do it, should I not? Yeah.
Because if you gotten it fixed then, it would have been actual fix. Yeah. But now that you physically tore it, like the surgery would only be damage control. Yeah. Which you are already doing. Yeah. So then your choice is like, okay, like I'm already doing damage control. Surgery is also damage control, but there's also other risks involved in injury. I mean surgery, but there's no risk in me damage controlling by foam rolling or whatnot. So you're just going to continue doing that.
Yeah, I think so.
That sounds.
Fair. One thing I've done is I haven't run as much. Actually, I started running more, and to my surprise, is like I've been fine. Yeah. But I don't do sports like basketball where I'm gonna be cutting back and forth and putting my leg in that much more risk. Yeah. You know what's funny for me is like my shoulder injury too that I haven't talked about much in this video. It's like I only feel in like very certain planes that like something like that I don't even usually think about unless I'm paddling on my left. I don't know why I thought of that just now, but I guess we're talking about like pain management, right? And like should you get surgery or not? Yeah. And like honestly, if I wanted to consistently paddle on my left or snatch and stuff, probably. Like I know like no matter what amount of mobility I do, it'll get better. Yeah. But this is something that's worth the surgery.
And so you guys might be at like sort of different things or like different places too, you know. You have me and Bryan kind of both, or I feel like we both know quite a little bit about injuries and like things like that, and we made very different choices. Right, I went ahead and got the surgery, and you're still kind of tottering, but yet knowing that like you don't have to get the surgery, so you're thinking just you might not just get it. Yeah. So you guys are at different places, and so whatever like injury you have, like you know, just kind of share out, and we can have a discussion about it. Comment down below, like you know what you're dealing with, how you might have gotten injuries. We love to hear those stories too, because I think just the more people can know about how people get injured in dragon boating, the more we can talk about it. And that's not to say like the more people know about injuries in dragon boating, the less people want to dragon boat. It's not about that. It's about like let's talk about it so we can train smarter, but continue to train for excellence and continue to push the competition.
Right. Like you and your coaches need to be asking these questions, and you guys need to be attacking these issues head on. And that's a big reason why I'm saying for physical therapy right now. It's just influenced me so much, realizing coaching my own athletes, like dang, I have no idea how to help them. Like what am I going to do about it? I have no idea how to help myself. What am I going to do about it? And I mean, that's why I'm studying for physical therapy now. So I mean, hopefully this video inspires you guys to at least look deeper into it and ask yourself these questions. Am I treating myself like an athlete? And if not, why not? And think about the risk rewards of injuries and that type of thing.
Yeah, and we would say like, are you treating yourself as an athlete? It's like, are you actually resting, taking care of it? And when I say resting, also that involves like foam rolling and all that stuff. That all goes into the recovery piece. So are you actually training, but at the same time recovering well? Right. Because if you're just training, then you're not an athlete. Because an athlete trains and recovers. Right? You don't get stronger by lifting heavy weights. You get stronger by resting after you have lifted heavy weights. Yeah. Right? So that piece is also really important. So yeah, hopefully you guys got something out of the video. we wanted to share our own stories so that we can inspire you guys to kind of come out and talk about your stories too. If you have a great success story, you know, you had an injury and you brought yourself back, we'd love to hear about those. If you still kind of are like kind of in the middle of it, we also want to hear that. So yeah, let us know. Hope you guys got something out of it. Yeah. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. Just subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, share it with your coaches, share it with your therapists even, see what they say, share it with your chiropractors. Like, let them prove us wrong, let them prove us right.
Sure.
You know, let this start some
conversation. If we're doing something wrong, we'd love to freaking hear about it.
I want to know.
Yeah.
For sure.
So hopefully podcasts out every 2 weeks. Look forward to that, and then blog posts every other week. Yeah, so check those out as well. And just kind of shouting out there too, if you want to be on the podcast and if you have something that you want to talk about, come join us, and we just have a chill conversation. If you want to write a piece for the blog and you want to write about coaching, training, whatever you guys want to write about for the Dragon Boat community, also we can use our website as a platform for you as well.
One last shout out. Just want to shout out all the people who came up to us at the Lake Merritt race, the NorCal Dragon Boat International Dragon Boat Festival. It was really nice hearing from people who actually listen and watch all these videos and telling us how great it was and different feedback that they had for us. We've had people write into us already. We've had companies actually look into partnering up, and it's just really great seeing how much people care about the community and how much people actually want to help. So thank you guys very much for the support. We'll keep trying to do our part, and hopefully you guys keep listening.
Yeah, big shout out to Cali Paddlers. Big shout out to Burnwater.
Burnwater, yep.
Yeah, so you guys are really great supporters, and we really appreciate it. Yeah, see you guys next week.
Peace.
Peace. Ah!